Okay, I'm very happy to put this together. I just started putting this presentation together yesterday, so I mean it comes together fairly quick. I don't tie any emotions to these breakdowns. I don't get paid off of them. This is basically a hobby, but I do take pride in showing the stuff is scripted, and what better to show that the world is scripted by using professional wrestling. Even with this story here, this is the death of the fake Razor Ramon, who was uh his real name was Rick Bognar. All right. So you see, this is the fake Razor Ramon right here, Rick Bognar. Now this is the real professional wrestler Scott Hall, who portrayed the character Razor Ramon, the original, right? This was actually one of my favorite pro wrestlers. And what's interesting about pro wrestling is you already know it's kind of like scripted entertainment, okay? And I can accept that, right? But with this other, entertainment that they give us to distract us on the world stage, they need to just admit that that stuff's scripted as well. That's why I'm okay with pro wrestling. I don't watch it anymore, but at least they tell you it's entertainment, right? And now the WWF is World Wrestling Entertainment. But it was kind of a clue with pro wrestling of how the world stage works. Now Scott Hall, you see his name there, Scott Oliver Hall, the original Razor Ramon. So you got Rick Bognar, who is the fake Razor Ramon, who the fans did not accept this replacement. Uh, for Scott Hall. I mean, it was atrocious at the time, but that kind of lets us know how characters can be replaced on the world stage as well, huh? You'll see celebrities go to prison. Maybe you don't see them for a long time. They come out and then you get all the videos. It's not the same person. It's a clone, right? So this was kind of like shocking when it happened. And it kind of lets you know what they can do with these characters on the world stage. So, and you see the fake Diesel right here, right? In the mid 90s, the WWF, now WWE, introduced fake versions of Razor Ramon and Diesel, portrayed by Rick Bognar and Glenn Jacobs. And Glenn Jacobs, the future Kane, that character played very well. Okay, but they mocked Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, the original Diesel, after they jumped to WCW, and then we had the whole New World Order thing pop off, right? Which was probably the freaking biggest storyline in pro wrestling. But this storyline intended to show the characters were more important than the original wrestlers, and to turn commentator Jim Ross into a heel. Even Ross has the R like Razor Ramon, and this fake Razor, his last name's Bognar. So Bognar, Razor, right? Ross, R. But it also turned Jim Ross into a heel, was a creative blunder that fans rejected. And we don't know if it was intended to be sloppy or not, but it was real sloppy. And like I said, this jumped into the whole New World Order thing with Scott Hall and Kevin Nash and the WCW. So this was huge. This was a part of a huge moment with pro wrestling, okay? And then you had Hulk Hogan join the NWO. But the fans rejected. It was really embarrassing, and these gimmicks were short lived. You just couldn't replace the original gimmicks because the Kevin Nash, Diesel, and Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, the original characters. I mean, they were superstars, and I still don't. They probably could have went on to even be more successful than they were if they would have just stayed with the WWF, now WWE. But the attempt to keep the characters alive was seen as a desperate move and a slight to the audience, ultimately failing to gain any significant traction. And if I didn't mention earlier, I may have, but a sudden and unexpected heart attack for Rick Bognar, right? That's a common theme with on the world stage with entertainers, right? Oh, a sudden illness, or they never explained it to the fans, and he's dead, and now his family lets us know, things to that nature. But a sudden and unexpected heart attack for Rick Bognar, the fake Razor Ramon. So you see the real, so you see the fake right there, and you see the real, and like obviously, I mean, that's kind of embarrassing. Not saying there isn't similarities, but these two guys are like pretty goofy looking compared to these two, I think, you know. So you see Kevin Nash and Scott Hall here. This is what created the New World Order with WCW, and at the time, even myself included, like, oh, is this real? Like, are they really invading WCW? But if you could logically think, it's like, no, they got security guards. Nobody would be able to do that. And then later on, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, of course they signed contracts or something, right? So, anyways, this would be what became the start of the New World Order. And again, you see Razor Ramon and Diesel, the originals here in their WWF or, slash WWE as they're known now, attire right there. And really, like I said, no comparison to the fake there. All right. So, I just want to get some visuals here. If I'm 44 years old. If you're around my age and at some point in your life you were a pro wrestling fan, you'll remember this moment. I remember having this on VHS. Rick Ross kind of transitions into the heel in the ring. I think it was something to do with his Bell's palsy condition and how he was treated. They kind of used that into this rant here, which went on and, kind of helped him transition into a heel. So he's going to go ahead and introduce the fake Razor Ramon here. And, people think that it's the real Razor Ramon, right? Scott Hall, but it's not. It's Rick Bognar. Have similarities, but there's really no comparison. And just real quick, here's Scott Hall invading WCW Nitro.
Mauler completely mauled.
Right here, which is, now WWE owns all of the WCW, as they bought them. So they own all their videos and their whole like catalog or whatever. And we don't know if any of that stuff's even like really legitimate, right? And, he does his speech here. You know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here. And again, this all led to the NWO. He goes up to the commentator table and kind of harasses the commentators, which I don't have here in this video. But okay, so that's just a little bit of the breakdown. So now I want to show you some undeniable stuff here. So you could see right here the fake Razor Ramon portrayed by Rick Bognar. This is the death decode, sudden and unexpected heart attack. Notice how that debut was September 23rd, 1996. And he dies September 20th, 2019, 3 days before that debut anniversary. Now, what would be the odds of that? Okay. What would be the odds of that? The fake razor, Rick Bognar, he dies 118 days before his next birthday. Richard Bognar equals 118. And you see the ordinal ABC 123. You see the cipher breakdown right there. Really simple. Even R is the 18th letter of the alphabet. So Razor Ramon, RR, 1818. Rich Bognar, but his name's Richard Bognar. R like Razor Ramon. Remember, Bognar rhymes with razor. 118, and he dies 118 days before his next birthday. So, I mean, what are the odds of that? He dies at age 49, sudden heart attack in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. He was born in Surrey, British Columbia, Canada. And you see his birthday the 16th day of the year. We'll get into that a little more later. I told you we were going to look at this because I just did that Owen Hart breakdown too. And it had The Undertaker, which was really creepy in the main event of Over the Edge, where Owen Hart fell to his death in a like kind of a stunt gone wrong. Look at this debut for the fake razor, Rick Bognar. Notice, because they're promoting In Your House Buried Alive, okay, which is like a pay-per-view. Notice how they have that, and he's got to walk around it as he enters the ring with this debut. Look at it's buried alive first all, right? And the truth in plain sight, not saying he was buried alive or whatever, but the Undertaker and Mankind, the Undertaker's associated with death. But Rick Bognar dies, and I think I forgot to mention Scott Hall is dead now as well, okay? So both of these guys are dead. And it's a common theme with pro wrestlers. No matter what story they give you or how these pro wrestlers die, they pass in big numbers, okay? So, man, look at how that event was upcoming October 20th, 1996 as they're promoting it right there. And this is the fake razor debut right here, which is September 23rd, right? So you could see that event was their what appears to be their next pay-per-view. October 20th is the real Razor Ramon, Scott Hall's birthday. And now they're both dead, and you got the event that was buried alive. I want to go look at that when I'm done here now and go look at that event. Obviously, I'm not going to do it right now, but what are the odds of that? And I don't remember them ever saying, and why would they say that? They got the they got the script right in plain sight here. Isn't that amazing? Scott Hall, the original Razor Ramon with the October 20th birthday, the fake Razor debuts, and you got October 20, the original Razor's birthday right there, which In Your House Buried Alive, that event was the upcoming event there at the time. You know what's amazing too? That's Kamala Harris's birthday. Okay? You know, her what's the greatest thing she's ever done, almost becoming the president, but vice president to Joe Biden. Harris, HA, same birthday as Hall, HA. So right, I have to mention it. And you see, Scott Hall, he passed. Scott Hall also, the original Razor Ramon here. So both of these characters are dead now. Scott Hall passed on Steph Curry's birthday. Basketball legend, or, if they don't call him a legend, superstar, soon to be legend, right? But Scott Hall dies on Steph Curry's birthday, Golden State Warriors, NBA. Scott S, the original Razor Ramon, Steph S, right? So, just to show you how the world is scripted by the language and the numbers. And this character was kind of like a Scarface, Al Pacino kind of gimmick. Razor, think about illegal substances, right? Remember the movie Scarface? Even Scarface has SC like Scott. And there's probably more with that connection. I didn't really think of it until right now. Okay? But you can see Scott Hall also dies like Richard Bognar. And they have a whole storyline leading up to his death as well. And it's interesting because there was a lot of substance abuse that they talk about, right? There was a lot of substance abuse that they would talk about, and they would give you stories and they would show images of him looking real sloppy. And you can see how that storyline leads into his death. I don't have the actual cause of his death right now at the moment. Maybe at the end, this is a fake Razor Ramon decode. But you can go look at the history of Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, and like all like the substance abuse with the storyline that they'll give you. And you can go do that on your own if you want. But I'm gonna say it probably led to his character's death, right? So look at here how Razor Bognar, again it rhymes. This is the fake Razor, and you see the fake Diesel over there who went on to beat Kane. Okay, with very successful character, but played by Glenn Jacobs. But notice how Razor and Bognar connect here, other than rhyming. Look at the 30 and 30 in the language, and you see the four ciphers here: forwards, reverse with the alphabet, and then reduction applied to both. Look at the number connections, and he's chosen. Not only he's chosen, he looks like Scott Hall, the original. That's how I know this stuff goes a little bit deeper than just the script, right? These, think about like some characters on the world stage, Rick Ross, who, Gucci Mane, Jamie Foxx, a lot of these characters, they're like, oh, this isn't the real guy they give us now. After something maybe dramatic happens to their character. Well, I think that there's like copies of us everywhere out there, and whoever's in control, they can track down those copies. So look at how Razor Bognar, look at how this stuff connects, and then the guy looks like Scott Hall. It's a kind of a, in my opinion, it's kind of like a sloppy replacement, but in all generality, is that a right word? In the, not really, but when you compare it to Scott Hall, the original Razor Ramon, right? Nothing compares to the original. But it's interesting how there's features that are similar, right? And then the numbers match. Even with Kane up there, he's imitating the original Diesel in the background there. Well, the original Diesel was Kevin Nash. So you got Kevin K, and then this guy goes on to be successful with Kane, with the red and black. K, Kane, Kevin K. Okay? And what's interesting about that is Kane, they said, was the brother in the storyline to the Undertaker. So then we go back to this Undertaker buried alive here with the Scott Hall birthday with that event. So you see how this works? But WWE also equals 30. It was WWF at the time, but now WWE, right? With the name change. So Bognar 30, Razor 30. You see the 33s too. You see the 57. But Bognar 30, Razor 30, now WWE. WWE equals 30. He died 30 days before Scott Hall's birthday. Scott Hall's birthday is October 20, 10th month, 20th day. 10 plus 20 is 30. And I mentioned earlier the fake Razor Ramon unexpected heart attack, sudden heart attack, was 49 years old when he died September 20th, 2019. Look at that upcoming birthday for Scott Hall, the original Razor, 49 date numerology. So Rick Bognar dies at age 49, exactly 30 days before the original Scott Hall's birthday, and that birthday had 49 date numerology. Just to put a little spin on things so you can show once this stuff connects, it's basically how deep you want to go. Because I showed you that 57 with Bognar and Razor, but I put it in here again because Scott Hall, the original Razor Ramon, he died 57 days after Scott Bognar's birthday. And, Scott dies in 2022, Bognar dead in 2019. Look at that. So, Scott Hall, you see the arrow on the original. 57 days he dies after Rick Bognar's birthday when Bognar and Razor equal 57. And that's a 58-day span from start to end. He dies 57 days after Bognar's birthday. But if you include both dates, it's a 58-day span. And Razor Ramon equals 58. Bognar dead in 2019. Scott Hall dead in 2022. So you can just kind of like wherever the months land, you can just round it to 3 years, right? 19 to 22. Remember, those 30s are like threes right there. And don't forget Razor 33, Bognar 33. Even Scott Hall was born in 1958. You see that? I mean, what are the odds? So basically, I could have easily done a Kevin Nash decode, Scott Hall, Kane, and I kind of like these pro wrestling decodes. These are kind of fun, and there's negative energy with the characters dying or whatever. But these are just characters in a fake world. You know what I mean? We can't be emotionally attached to this stuff. Okay, and I mentioned that they say a sudden and unexpected heart attack. And to be honest, we'll see what happens with Kevin Nash because Scott Hall is dead now, right? You see, obviously the fake Razor dead. Hulk Hogan just died recently. All of these legends, right? Ultimate Warrior dead. The list goes on and on and on. Something else with the Scott Hall birthday. Remember, there was a pro wrestler named Kamala and Kamala. And that's interesting with the Scott Hall birthday being Kamala Harris's birthday because that was a whole nother. I think I might have mentioned it in a video a long time ago, possibly. But Kevin Nash. I mean, what's going to happen with Kevin Nash? We'll see. We'll see if anything happens with Kevin Nash. I thought I had more pictures of him. There he is on the right there. Diesel. Right? So, and Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, there may have been some Razor usage with some of the substance abuse, right? So think about the character names as well, Diesel, Vehicle, maybe. Big Daddy Cool, the nickname. So, there could be something connected to that. in the future for Kevin Nash. I mean, these are just storylines, and you can't escape what's just meant to be, in a fake world. So notice here with the unexpected heart attack for Scott Bognar, sudden and unexpected heart attack. You see him on the left. Again, no comparison between the two. Like, yeah, they do have similarities, but you just can't beat the original character. Fake Razor Ramon equals 72 in the reduction cipher. Okay. Scott Hall's birthday after the death of Bognar. That Scott Hall birthday left 72 days in the year. Like fake Razor Ramon equals 72. Even heart attack equals 72. 4 basic ciphers with the language. This is just a little bonus because I couldn't really figure out where to put this in right here. But remember 118 days before his next birthday, Bognar dies, sudden heart attack, and Richard Bognar equals 118. Well, look, 118 is the same as 16 weeks, 6 days. Okay? And 166 is like 16. Wrestling equals 116, which is like 16. Reverse that 16, you get the 61. Richard and Ramon equal 61. Okay? And this debut was 1996. Okay? And just to show you how all of this, you get all of these patterns and everything bunched into a category, right? And then you see the patterns repeat. Now, 1996, that's the year Tupac Shakur died. Okay? Now, his birthday was the 16th day of the 6th month. So look here how you get that 16-6 right there. Okay? And Tupac Shakur, obviously I just told you he died. But you also get 16 and 61 with Tupac in the language. I can't remember if it's Tupac or it's Tupac Shakur. I think it's Tupac that equals 16 and 61. So you can kind of see how that connects the characters by this 1996 year. Okay. And you could also connect other characters there as well. Tupac dies in 96, the year Kobe Bryant is drafted. Kobe, K, Kane, K. You get the 4 letters. The fake Diesel goes on to be Kane, which is very successful. So just a little example. Even that 118 right there, I think I think California equals 118. Okay? So, California love to live and die in LA. So you kind of see how all of this stuff connects right there. And again, it just depends on how deep you want to go down the rabbit hole. Okay? But I think it's California that equals 118, or it's Los Angeles, California. I can't quite remember. I don't really want to break away right now. It might be California, but you can go check that if you want.
All these guys leaving the WWF was an accident? Hell no, it's not. You think all these guys coming here was an accident? Absolutely not. I've been very busy. And right now, I want to bring back one of your favorites. He's the bad guy, Razor Ramon. And Hershey Park Arena explodes. Here he comes. Oh, the bad guy, Razor Ramon. Wait a minute. King, that's not the original. I think this. How do you like that, WWF? How do you like Razor Ramon? How do you like that, McMahon? Like he's a little bigger than the last time I saw him. What is JR trying to do? Is he trying to embarrass the World Wrestling Federation? Razor, how's it feel to be back in the WWF? Oh, yeah, man. D3ath. Take a look at the bad guy, man. Wait a second, Savvy Omega hits the ring.
So we'll see if I get away with that footage. Okay, there's always more to these breakdowns. Okay, that's all I have for y'all at the moment. So soak up my information. Again, I do this for fun. I'm obviously not going to garner any kind of mainstream attention by doing this. But that's all the energy I have here. So the fake Razor Ramon, Rick Bognar, short short attempt at portraying the Razor Ramon character, brutally failed. And yeah, so I'm glad I could share, this decode with y'all, and maybe bring whoever watches this, maybe back to their younger days. It's a fake world, and pro wrestling, now that we look at it, you could see everything on the world stage, everything on television. This stuff's just pro wrestling. So the death of the fake Razor Ramon, Rick Bognar. Okay, I appreciate being able to present this. Sudden and unexpected heart attack. Until next time.